if the data quality in your CRM is low, you lose the trust of the rep. And that means that the good reps will start like trying to search manually for that data and improve the data quality and get insights about companies or people to target. There is a direct correlation between data quality, trust, and productivity, because if they trust the data as being like good and well clean and enriched, then they have to do less of a manual effort, hence their productivity increases.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Ignite podcast. Today we're delighted to have Elio Narciso on the program. He's the founder and CEO for ScaleStack, a portfolio company of ours. So we're pretty excited. Literally just confirmed the investment right before the podcast. So we're pretty excited about that. He's been, at AWS. He has a couple successful exits, an MBA like me, and just a really cool AI-powered go-to-market orchestration platform. So welcome to the program.
Thank you, Brian. And welcome to the team. We're so glad that you're now part of ScaleStack as an investor. And thank you for the trust. And thank you for having me in your podcast.
This is my favorite part of my job. It's like meeting founders and then having them on my podcast. So it's
Great.
like I kind of get to double dip a little bit. Would love to get an intro from you for the audience.
Awesome. Well, my name is Elio, born and raised in Italy, but actually never worked in Italy. After college in Milan, I left and I moved to Spain, where I started my career in management consulting, particularly focused on telecom and media customers. So that meant like only a couple of customers per country. Hence, I traveled all over Europe first and then LATAM and Asia. So I got exposed to a lot of stuff and that was super interesting, but then decided that I wanted to regroup and rethink about like my next step in my career. So I decided to do an MBA, which I did at MIT Sloan. And that was actually my first time in the US, the first day for my MBA, and loved it and spent most of my time at MIT at the Entrepreneurship Center, and really fascinated by this idea that you can start a company and build it from scratch. And so that's what I pursued after the MBA. ScaleStack is my fourth startup. I had two exits, one company that didn't work out, but we learned a lot. And now we are pursuing this idea that you really need to put order to all of your go-to-market data in order for your sales and marketing team to be much more efficient. And I think that thanks to automation and artificial intelligence, we can now do that at a massive scale. And that's what we're doing for meaningful customers. But as you said, I also spent a couple of years, actually 4, at AWS. And
it's like a startup, at least. What years were you there?
17. So like it was already pretty big, but when I left, 85% of the people at AWS had been hired after me. So just to give you a sense of the scale and the growth.
It was super raisers, fun, by the way.
Yeah, I was a bar raiser. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
I was a bar raiser, which was super fun. I learned a ton. We can talk about that a little bit. But
so you left in 2017?
No, I left in 22. So I was
okay.
there.
So we overlapped.
Yeah.
I was on the marketplace team with Chris Cruz and Mo Nachata and all those guys.
Great.
So I led the SageMaker launch, the SageMaker marketplace launch.
I can't believe we didn't actually meet while there.
Yeah.
Because
when we met, I was like, your name's familiar, but we didn't put that together yet. That's kind of funny.
Wow, that's crazy. I didn't connect those dots. I work with Mona and I basically wrote the doc. This is Amazon jargon. I wrote the doc for the AWS Global Startup Program and got approved and then ran that program, and it was super fun. By the time I left, we had 600 startups under management. This was a program that still exists, so sort of my legacy there, for supporting the go-to-market of mid to late stage startups. And what not only was super fun to do because we had super cool companies that had raised a lot of money or pre-IPO that we were supporting in their go-to-market motions, but that's also where I got the idea for ScaleStack, because all of these well-funded companies were all struggling with similar things, primarily around the quality of the data that they had in their CRM, which is used to prioritize your sales and marketing efforts, and typically was bad. And secondly, the efficiency or inefficiency that a lot of sales reps today go through, because they have to spend a lot of time of their day, getting data from somewhere, putting it somewhere else and trying to make sense of it. And, that's very time consuming. And so that's why we built ScaleStack, because we really want to solve for those two problems, which are related, obviously, because there is bad data. Reps are like, in need of like searching for that data and cleaning it up. And so that's where we're focusing.
And that must have been a hard decision to leave, because if you started in 2017 and left in 22, the stock went absolutely
2018,
bonkers.
I think I interviewed in
Yeah.
2017 and started in 2018. Yeah.
Yeah, I was the same. I started in 20. It was like the spring of 2018. I remember, and then Microsoft recruited me out in a year, and they gave me a like offer I couldn't refuse. And Mona was super mad at me. Sorry, Mona. But,
Hi, Mona.
hi, Mona. That was funny. We just ended this episode, and yeah, so that must have been a hard decision because if I calculated out my stock, if I would have just stayed, I would have made as much money just staying where I was at Amazon. So that must have been a hard decision for you. I guess you hit your 4-year cliff. And you noticed this problem with these 600 startups. Yeah.
Yeah, I did. It was great. I got promoted, and there was a lot going on. It was a hard decision. I think that for less for the money, I mean, the money was really good, of course, but I think it's you're living like a really well-established company, clearly a leader in what they're doing. And there were lots of opportunities to go and build other things, just like I built a program, I could have done other things. And that was interesting about Amazon, that in many ways is acting like a startup. The teams are small and they have to go and figure it out. You don't have everything served to you. But I think that once you got the urge to start and build something, it's pretty irresistible and you just have to go and do it. So I had studied Amazon just before joining. I mean, I had implemented some of the leadership principles at other startups that I've done. And being at Amazon was very interesting for me because I lived through those leadership principles in a daily basis. I became a bar raiser, which was super fun, and I learned a ton because it put order to a lot of ideas and a lot of things that I had about hiring, and it sort of structured them much better. So I'm very grateful for that experience, but I don't think it was a calculation around the RSUs, to be honest. It was more okay, I've done something interesting, built teams and built the program, and I need to build stuff. And the opportunity presented itself to build ScaleStack, and it was basically impossible to say no, even though definitely meant, it still means a salary change for sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I'd love to hear about your leadership principles, like how you found out about them in your previous companies before you even came to Amazon, and what were some of your favorite ones that you implemented?
I think Amazon, I mean, you could say that about Google also, maybe Facebook, but Amazon has sort of written again the book about management. And I think that, a lot of the stuff around customer obsession obviously is, interesting for the way they presented. What is customer obsession is not we're upset, but really we work backwards. And so we first see what customer need and want, and what are the problems that they have, and then we go backwards and build the product around that. And I think that, again, some of the concepts are shared across many companies, but I think that at Amazon was really,
it's the way he framed it. Bezos is such a genius because it's the way he frames it, because a lot of companies they export their organizational chart, or they export kind of their ideas for how to build something, or it's not well known, but Steve Jobs was obsessively customer focused, and he would obsessively talk to people in focus groups, and just to really hone in on their problems and their what they were trying to do. But he comes across as this big visionary, coming down from Mount Sinai with tablets in his hand. But really, he was actually just really crazily customer focused. And so was Jeff Bezos, which is why Amazon, I think, will go down as one of the best run businesses of all time.
Yeah, and I think that there is also this thing at Amazon, which is the translation from the vision and the big values or leadership principles to practical things that you can do in your daily job. What is working backwards, then it gets translated into the writing culture. And so that you don't do PowerPoints, you need to write long form document, not more than 6 pages, to explain what you want to do. And once you start doing that, you realize that unless you have like really clear and crisp and data backed ideas, you cannot write that document. And so like, the same for like hiring the best. What does it mean? That like, it means that you actually hire against the leadership principles. And so like, okay, show me examples. The hiring process is typically, oh, can you show me an example like, from your past about like where you change your team's idea and to bring something that the customer needed. And so you have to hire against those leadership principles and ask the questions to see if like, they have demonstrated in their past examples of those leadership principles. So that was also super interesting. I think one of my favorite is disagree and commit, which is a really tough one because I mean, it's a very tough culture in many ways, Amazon, but also people are nice in general, but it's tough in the sense that like, people are willing to, discuss and disagree and like be very like persistent. But at some point, like, a decision is made and everybody commits to it. Even the people that had the different idea and sort of lost that conversation. And so I think that was also very interesting. Yeah, there are several. There are probably too many now. I think that they're making an effort to reduce the leadership principles, but they all had like, I would say, an easy way to be applicable in the day-by-day life.
Yeah. Andy Jassy, who I was in the room with on my first week at Amazon, which was absolutely bonkers. I was like, what is going on here? I was like, first week on the job.
That's cool.
He added a leadership principle. I forget what it is.
About the
something
scaling.
about responsibility. Yeah.
Yeah. With the scale comes responsibility. Yes.
Yeah. With scale becomes responsibility. I like that. That's kind of interesting. But we talk about Amazon for an hour and it's amazing. But let's talk about ScaleStack. So what was the gap in the market that you were kind of trying to fill here? You saw this with, hundreds of startups. Startups obviously have lots of SaaS software they can go buy from, big CRMs like Salesforce and HubSpot and all these others. Like, what is it about this go-to-market orchestration is the problem? Yeah.
I think there were like some obvious truths in our face. And one is, I would say, if you ask anybody that has to deal with a CRM today, whether that's a salesperson or someone managing it or like, people that have to touch it and ask them, are you happy with it? The answer is no, 99.9%.
Right? It's like a necessary evil. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. I mean, Salesforce is this like super successful company and HubSpot as well. But like clearly there is like huge gaps in like the way particularly data is put into the CRM or like improved, clean, enrich, prioritized. And those gaps needs to be solved soon, because I think that AI not only presents an opportunity to improve that data, and indeed ScaleStack uses AI to clean the data, synthesize it, prioritize it, and score it, and so on. But AI is an opportunity for the companies we work with, because anybody can build an app with AI now. But in order to successfully do that, you need good data. And so the days where like we accepted as a fact of life that the data in my CRM is outdated, is not clean, is like, poor, needs to change over the next 2 years. Because like you need to have good data about your customers, potential customers, target, all clean, orchestrated well, prioritized. Because then on top of the data, you want to build business apps with AI that may be like agents or co-pilots that absorb the data and managing it to do like specific use cases. And without that, like the agents will go crazy. And so that's not going to work. So I think that that's number one. And then the other obvious truth was that, there was a study by Salesforce a couple of years ago. They interviewed 8,000 reps. They asked them, what do you do all day? And the conclusion were like crazy. 72% of the time was spent on non-selling activities. Like take the data, put it here, like try to research leads, try to research the companies and like get insights in the CRM and prepare. And all of that is not selling activities. So only 28% was devoted to calls and writing an email to a customer and all of that stuff. And that's insane, right?
Yeah.
So I think that there is a huge productivity gap for go-to-market teams. I think until 2021, 2022, that productivity gap was, companies hired their way out of this productivity gap because there was money. But now that money is way more costlier and companies cannot hire in order to grow, the only way to grow is to increase productivity and efficiency. And, that 72% gap is a huge opportunity that will need to change quickly.
So tell me about the founding team. Who else was on the team when you kind of got oriented? Did you convince anybody to leave their safe haven at AWS and come along on the ride? Like, tell us about that kind of founding team.
No, luckily that's always very tough. I've met Alex in another startup. Alex is my co-founder. He's also Italian. He also lives in the US, but he's based in Atlanta, although actually he's moving to Miami soon. I hired him as a product manager for another startup before AWS. And then after that, we had stayed in touch. He's a great product and ops guy, and we stayed in touch. He reads a lot, and so while I was at AWS building this program, he was doing something else, but he was reading about these problems we had shared at that company about the go-to-market efficiency. And so we wrote a doc for ScaleStack,
a 6-pager.
And we started writing that document together, and we liked it. We started building an MVP, and that was interesting. And we put it on hold because we started this process during the pandemic. Then the pandemic put a hold to all of this, and then we retook the efforts in late 21, early 22, and then from there it's been unstoppable, really. I quit AWS in the summer of 22. Because we started seeing real interest from real customers who wanted to pay money for this and the access to the platform. And so that's the founding story. So he and I are equal partners in the venture. And then we started building a team. We hired the CTO. We hired a couple of other people. And so that's how we got started.
That's amazing. So there's this aha moment, which I love hearing about, right? Because I've had it as a founder, as a product manager, where you're starting to show this to potential customers, this MVP, and you're getting some leans forward. Kind of describe that for founders out there. How do you characterize that? How do you know you have something? You're on your 4th startup. You've done a lot of this, right? For the potential founders out there that are kind of like, how do I know when I have something? And you definitely had something, and you kind of realized it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, the startups that I've done are all very different from one another. But I think that what I learned there is that at the end of the day, people have to vote with their money. There is no other better vote than people parting ways with some of their money to say, I want this.
This is a hair on fire problem, and I will pay you every month for as long as I need to keep solving this for me.
So to us, that was, because in the other startup that we had a phenomenal product that also leveraged AI, but it was so hard to convince customers to give us some money to do that pilot. We had to work so hard and give a lot of stuff for free. And instead for ScaleStack, it wasn't. Obviously we compete, we have to build innovation, we have to bring this to the right customers at the right time. There needs to be an initiative, but clearly people need this, and they are voting by you say, okay, let's do even a 3-month pilot, and we'll pay X amount per month, but we'll pay, and we'll need to do this quickly. So I think that was the haha moment, in the sense that after building the MVP, clearly, we didn't have a lot to show. It was all coded into the platform. There was no visual layer that they could really touch, but we could show the input and the output. And that was enough to say, okay, I really need this because I need to clean my data, enrich it, prioritize it. I need to do territory mapping. And to do that, I need to profile my accounts or the leads. And so let's do a 3 months or 6 months pilot, and I'll pay you X amount per month.
Yeah.
So I think that's very important. Although at some point it does. It also needs to be, or it can be okay, the pilot is for free, but you give us two of your people that will need to spend X amount of time on this and build this with us. So like time commitments and resource commitments from the customer. I think you always need that sort of feedback loop, because otherwise like you push, farther down the line, like the moment of truth. And that's not very good, because you're risking a lot in a startup. And so you actually want to get like that feedback loop as soon as possible.
Yeah, I love that. So tell us about kind of the rounds. Obviously, you're closing a round now. Did you raise a round back in 2022? What's the kind of as much as you can divulge,
Sure.
kind of the fundraising history?
No, we bootstrapped the company for the first year, basically. And then we did an accelerator called Forum Ventures, which is a B2B SaaS accelerator. We did that last year, March to June. We knew the people. They actually had funded the other company we basically decided to not continue to pursue. So it was good to get like their trust again. And then we did a pre-seed round last year. We only raised $1 million. Ripple Ventures fund in Toronto led that. And now we are raising our seed. We're not raising a huge seed. We're raising like, a couple of $1 million. We raised $1.5 million already. But I'm really happy about like the profile of the investors. People like you who really understand the space. We got like Back Future, Geek Ventures here in New York.
Geek, yeah.
Exor Ventures. I just came back from a conference. They are Italians. They are like the owners of like Fiat and Chrysler and Ferrari. But like they also have a venture arm. They invested and they organized like a pretty cool conference I attended last week, which is Italian Tech Week.
Oh.
There was Sam Altman there and a lot of international VCs. So it was really fun. So I'm really excited about the profiles of investors, because we were looking for an interesting combination of obviously good people, because it's nice to work with nice people, but they can also bring something else besides money. And that was very important for us. Back Future is obviously connected to SaaStock, and Geek Ventures here in New York is very active in like organizing stuff for founders. Then we have Sentiero Ventures, which just invested and is profiling to be our lead in this round. They have a lot of connections with enterprise customers. So we were looking for a combination of money and other stuff, which it can be different for each investor. Right. But yeah, we're quickly wrapping up this round. We want to Q4 and Q1 are very good for us because people are like looking at planning and let's reprioritize our efforts for the new year, and let's build like better processes and better ops. And so we have seen that like Q4 and Q1 are very important. So we're going to be decreasing the focus on fundraising, basically right now, and like refocus completely on go-to-market, because I think that startups have to basically innovate in product and in go-to-market, because you can have a great product, but if you don't bring it to market in a smart way and you don't innovate on that side as well, you're not going to succeed. So I think we got the product innovation pretty clear. Now we need to innovate in our go-to-market. We're doing a ton of stuff there. We can talk about that if you want, but that's going to be our focus over the next 6 months.
Yeah. What I like about your business too is there's this element of dogfooding that you get in kind of these
drinking
your own champagne, of sales tech. Yeah, you're using the thing to go sell the thing. Yeah. And then so you're making it better because you're already using it in house.
Yeah.
And then you're going to sell it to people and you're like, hey, we also use our own product. Sell you this product, or keep track and orchestrate it all and things like that. I'd love to visit the accelerator question. There's been some chatter on x.com, Twitter recently about, there's been some VCs like, I never invest in accelerator companies, and I'm a big fan of them. But, you were a fourth-time founder at this point. Had a bunch of startups under your belt. What made you go, you know what, I already know these guys. I've worked with them in the past. Why go through another accelerator if you've already been there, done that?
The choice was very deliberate in the sense that I don't think we could have done a different accelerator. Forum is very flexible in the way you do the accelerator. So there was nowhere, we didn't go to some place for 3 months and like went through classes and all of that.
Yeah.
Forum can do that for founders that need that, maybe first-time founders or people that still have to build like some of the building blocks. For us, it was basically we want to be plugged into B2B SaaS investors that understand the enterprise tech space. Full stop. And so like, I wanted to build the network there, and they had that network, and they've been like invaluable for that. Essentially, they left us alone. We did it during those 3 months. We didn't really do much, in terms of classes, but they made the program around our needs. And they do that for every company in their accelerator, which I think is great. And we got an offer from a different accelerator. I won't name them, but like high profile, that it's more of a standard, process. Yeah. And we turned them down because, it was like, okay, you have to do every week, you have to do this, and you have to attend this and attend that, and the retreat and the founder mixer and all of that. And for us, it was like, no, we don't need that. We just need to build from the get-go, like a good network.
You just need the network. Yeah.
And so that's why we did it. I'm very happy we chose that. Forum Ventures has been like invaluable for both the pre-seed and the seed in connecting us with like great investors. And besides that, like the partner that I'm working with, which is Booker. Hi, Booker. He's great. He knows the space, and they've been like a sounding board for go-to-market stuff along the way. So I think it's a little bit like the MBA. I mean, there are many reasons not to do an MBA today. I did it, and it was valuable for me.
I did one as well. Yeah. Right. I did it at a time in my life in my mid-30s, at the part-time program for Berkeley, where I thought I'd always climb the ranks of product. I tried a couple startups, had a small business. I was like, okay, product's kind of the coolest job I can find besides being a founder. What do all the great product leaders have? They have MBAs. Great. I don't have one of those. I better go get one. And then at the same time, life just kind of just veers off in a different direction. But I don't regret my decision, but I think like an MBA it's a good thing when you know either exactly what you want to do or you don't know exactly what you want to do. So I guess it's a good thing no matter what. I don't know, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
What I'm saying is that like I think it's a similar decision because an MBA is very costly. So I think you need to have like a clear path to how you're gonna get a return from that. And an accelerator, completely different topic, but like it's a similar decision. It's very costly to do an accelerator because typically, I mean, it's you're like early in the company. They want like a percentage, which is relevant.
Yeah, 5-7% for a very small investment, all that stuff. Yeah.
Right. And so you need to have a path to the return. And I think that you need to be very deliberate about that. I did an MBA because I clearly wanted to change career. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had some initial ideas that I was going to change from consulting to investment banking. And then I ended up like doing startups. But like the return has been like, if I hadn't done MIT, I probably would not have been exposed to the entrepreneurship side of things at such a high level. And the same now for the decision of doing an accelerator. We were very deliberate. We didn't want like a regular program. We wanted something like that was, tailored for us. We wanted like to penetrate a certain network that we needed more insights on, and Forum delivered. And so I think that there has been a return for what we committed to do.
Yeah.
But I do agree that you need to think through these decisions. These are like the revolving door.
One way, two-way door.
One way that at Amazon, they say like one way versus two way. Like, the two ways, like you can come back. And so it's an easy decision. The one way is more complex. I think doing an MBA or like deciding if like getting into an accelerator program, it's sort of like a one way door. So
you're signing a contract or paying a big tuition bill or
giving up.
You could always
like
drop out of
percentage.
your MBA program, I guess, but you can't really drop out of an accelerator. They're on the cap table now.
Yes. Yeah. So I think it's a one-way door that you need to be very deliberate for those type of decisions.
Yeah. So what are some of the kind of the ROI that you're seeing as you talk to customers and implement a ScaleStack across their GTM stack? What kind of uplift are they seeing in productivity? How are you measuring that and capturing that value?
Great question. Talking about ROI of an MBA, of a Forum Ventures, or like ScaleStack.
Primed my brain with ROI talking about the MBA. Yeah.
I think step one is usually data quality. Or like companies have an issue with data quality, and like good like sales up. We sell or we work with like sales ops, rev ops, go-to-market operations teams, typically within the CRO org or sometimes the CMO org. But those are the teams that are tasked with like, we need to have the right data at the right time about, companies and people. And so data quality for many of those teams is very important. And particularly like with the larger teams, and for Mongo, definitely that was the case. They associated data quality to trust and to like productivity. If the data quality in your CRM is low, you lose the trust of the rep. And that means that the good reps will start like trying to search manually for that data and like, improve the data quality and get insights about companies or people to target. And so there is a direct correlation between data quality, trust, and productivity, because if they trust the data as being like good and well clean and enriched, then they have to do less of a manual effort, hence their productivity increases. So I would say data quality is number one, or like step one. And all of our customers are like really measuring that. And, we have measures of like data quality going up from like, say, 50% up to 95, 97, 99% when we get involved. And the other aspect is like how much time can you save because of that? And so customers that are more like in like say have implemented ScaleStack for some time are starting to measure that. And, I would say that out of that 72% of the time of a rep spent on like on selling activities, about 36% is directly impacted by things that we can do. So like, do you have all of the data points that you need to correctly profile the right target account and to score it? And then do you have all of the data points about the potential buyer or buying groups or teams, hence leads? And like, 36% of the time of rep is spent trying to research data around accounts or leads. And so that's a portion of like, that productivity that we want to basically flip on its head. So we want companies, reps, not to spend time on this, so that can basically double the time that they devote to talking to customers, from 28 to like 60%. And so we're starting to measure that. And like on average, we are seeing increases in productivity around like 15% now, which is huge. And it means like, a lot more selling, a lot more deals closed, a lot more customers' emails and meetings done, so that you can do more of what you're paid and supposed to do. The third step is like, okay, are we closing more deals? And so I think that that's something that like is a measure that happens like after a while, after you have like created data quality, created efficiency, started to build like more like of a top of the funnel, and then some deals have started to convert. But one of our customers did measure that, and for the accounts that we had enriched, so they basically took a sample of the accounts that we had enriched and those that we had not. And for those that we had enriched, they found that we brought like 53 times ROI. So they paid us $1 and they generated $53 in terms of higher revenues from those accounts that we had enriched and prioritized. This was Mongo that did the study before like renewing last year, another 2 years with us. So I think that those three are key components: data quality, productivity, and then conversion to sales.
Yeah, that's amazing. How do you see kind of the landscape shifting now? Because you're on the ground. I mean, I see a lot of it too, but with AI and automation kind of in the sales and marketing stack, do you see it as just eking out more efficiency and, just more sales and marketing is going to be done than before? Or are salespeople going to be more efficient and in higher demand now because there could be more sales than ever? I'm seeing a lot more efficiency definitely in the throughput of my startups in terms of headcount to revenue and stuff like that. Like, yeah, how do you see this all playing out in the kind of sales and marketing stack?
I think if all of this only generates increased output, I don't think it's a good outcome. I think that the aim for this is that like we use more automation and AI so that we humans do less of the things that are effectively boring and not value added, and we bring more of our own value added as like with our human intelligence to things where we do add value, like relationships and like understanding the data and digest it and use it in an effective way to convince someone that like the product that or the service that we're selling is the solution to their problems, and that they have that problem and that they are the right people that I should bring this up to. So I think that if we only say, okay, we use AI so that we can send automated sales emails and like at a much higher volume, if that's the output, I don't think that this is going to be a game changer.
But they're
But
personalized.
if we, yeah, well, I think also because buyers on their end will start using AI
Probably
to
using AI to answer the sales.
filter answers those
I
things
need that.
on
Yeah.
their behalf, right?
Yeah.
And there are companies working on that. Our hope is that if we do a good job, we'll save times which is now spent on like really boring stuff. Like, you know, let me go on Crunchbase and research companies, and then let me go on Sales Navigator and find out like about profiles and titles. And then let me go on Zoom for Lucia or Apollo to find the contact details. And then I start like writing the email. All of this, and I've wasted now like 3 hours on my day to do that. Like if I have to do as a rep that job, it's sort of time that I can save if ideally everything was done for me by an agent, by like, you know, ScaleStack that like orchestrate all of the data for me. Then I can have all of the right data in front of me. And I, before the meeting with Brian Bell, I know everything. I know the company. I know like, you know, what he has written about and like what he cares about. And so that I can have a smarter conversation without actually going and finding like the basic raw data myself. So that's the vision that like, you know, as a human, you'll consume well enriched, clean, prioritized data so that then you're better prepared for a meeting and for understanding the customer and like to decide if Brian Bell is like the right customer for me, or if maybe I should prioritize my time differently. So I think that that's the hope for AI, to be honest, is that like, you know, it automates a lot of stuff that we do not want to do and empowers us to do more of the things that humans are good.
Yeah, it's kind of like what's happening in customer service, right? They're getting rid of the level 1 stuff, and then they'll probably get rid of the level 2 customer support. And in sales, you could, you know, make an argument they're kind of enabling us to do higher level tasks, right? AI is enabling us not to do the menial kind of, you know, what was it, 72% of our day just looking up stuff and entering stuff into databases. All that stuff can be automated away, so I can spend more of my time focused on the customer needs, right? And what does the customer actually need, and how can I tailor my pitch or my solution to better serve them?
Yeah, creating like ideas about how the proposal should better reflect what the customer told me, or like where they are at, or like I think humans are good at that. And then obviously establishing the relationship and the credibility and the trust, which can be augmented by better knowledge of the company and the people and the teams they're in. So that's our hope. And that's what really we're seeing like in customers. Like customers don't come to us telling us, oh, we need to enrich the data. Customers come to us and they tell us, I really need to distribute an equitable book of business to all of my reps. Okay. And so to do that, you need to profile the accounts. You need to know who they are. You need to enrich them. You need to clean them. So like what they care about is the ultimate like result, and say every month I need to be able to like change the configuration of like my territory or my account patch for my reps so that I constantly distribute and redistribute like the accounts based on each rep, right? But to do that, you need the data. To do that, you need to calculate time or like decide if their account is interesting, and the information about like the account being interesting is like across ZoomInfo and LinkedIn and, you know, Crunchbase and news sites, or like the target account website, career page, or about us. So you want to be able to like get all of that data, make sense, reduce, synthesize, and like prioritize, which are all things that people are doing sorts of manually now. And that's what we want to do for a lot of customers.
Yeah, makes sense. So where do you see, ScaleStack in the next 5 to 10 years?
At its core, I think that we think of ourselves as a workflow company. So we create like really cool workflows that like performs a number of like actions. So, and what I mean by workflow, imagine like a data waterfall where like there are like modules that are little boxes that perform a data function, like get the data from LinkedIn, or like clean the data from Crunchbase, or like, go and grab data from, the about us of like the target customers.
Mm.
And then once we build this data waterfall, like we start like cleaning the data, enriching it and synthesize it and prioritize it. The workflow itself, we are having like people putting it together on behalf of customers. But eventually I can see the AI building the workflow, and we are starting to experiment there. You are a customer and you tell the AI, hey, I'm targeting companies that like are primarily in the US that have like at least like 10 locations and like have remote teams and like are at least like 50 people and growing their like HR team. I'm just inventing. What I just said like can be translated into data points. Those data points can come from different sources. And so now that we have developed like hundreds of data modules, we can tell an LLM what I just said, and the LLM will translate into data points, and the LLM will know where to get each data point from which data source, and so build the workflows automatically. Hence, we can build a workflow for any use case. We started from go-to-market because it's a huge area where there is a huge need for improvement and as we just discussed. But there are other areas that use similar data points around companies and people like HR or finance that can be accelerated and improved with similar workflows. And so since we work with enterprise customers, there are other areas of the enterprise that could benefit from our workflows once they become so sophisticated that you can basically in natural language tell them, hey, I need to do this for this specific objective with this specific data point. Go and do it. Go and build the workflow. And the agent builds the workflow and then gets the data. And so our role becomes like really deploying this for a lot of use cases within the enterprise.
Well, let's switch to rapid fire.
Very good.
I'll ask you a question. Give me your immediate response. What is your go-to productivity tool or app?
Read AI. It's meeting tracking and like recording, but like I think I've tested several. There are like many in the market, and I really like the way they synthesize my meeting, and like from sentiment to like assigning the clip of the video to like the call recording to the transcript. So yeah, that's I use it a lot, and I know the founder, so I like him as well, David. He has done this before.
Yeah. Well, what's one book that's influenced your approach to business?
My approach to business? No, I think it's I've read lots of business books, but like I think a book that has influenced like the approach to like how resources and like the distribution of efficient resources for people can create like differences in outcomes is Guns, Germs, and Steel. Which
I love that book.
like it's a great book. It was like completely eye-opening because basically how people had access to technology and like why, like, the easier way of communicating, like the Eurasia continent, which is like not very long, but it's very wide, made innovation
roughly the same
possible.
Climate. Yeah.
Right. Because made innovation possible because people could travel and exchange. And that's like, why like Silicon Valley, or why like, if you think about like the exchange of knowledge and the reciprocal access to resources so that like we can feed off like similar ideas and improve quickly on them, was eye-opening. And that's why I've always latched into communities like, Forum Ventures or like, other communities where like I can learn and things will be better for everyone, and so we'll raise the bar for everyone. It was a clear eye-opener for me because I've always asked myself, why, like, is Europe or like the US ahead, and how came to be this, and why is Silicon Valley like so disproportionately producing like so many successful companies and not Boston. I don't know, like Boston produces like a lot of interesting companies, but not of the scale of the valley, right? And the same problem is in Europe. I mean, I'm European, and now, European have produced like interesting companies. At that conference I went to, there was the CEO of Mistral, which is like the open AI of Europe, French based. They've raised a ton of money, so super successful. But like, you can count like those type of companies on one hand coming from Europe. And I think, it's because there is lots of different countries, different languages, like, the culture is different. And so maybe that's the last point that like came from the book also, like the cultural differences. I think that, and I speak as an Italian, for instance, like we are much more impermeable to taking risks because failing in Italy is hugely costly. Like when you fail in Italy, you're bankrupt, and that's a terrible word culturally. Wow. Anyway,
here in the US, you're like brush it off and do your next startup. Yeah, it's like a culture of like it's okay to fail.
Totally.
That's pretty wild. What's your favorite city, New York or Milan? I
need cities with water. So I lived in Barcelona. I was born on the water, like in Taranto, which is like in Puglia. And so I think I love Milan, but I really need water in my city. And so I love New York.
Whereabouts in New York is
Upper East Side. Actually, we recently moved like between the Upper East Side and like East Harlem. 104. Yeah, 104 and Park.
Okay.
Yeah.
I used to live on 80th and 2nd, Upper East Side.
Oh, nice.
So kind of
I was on like First and First. Yeah, we
lived right all over Yorktown area. Yeah.
Yes.
That's so wild. That's crazy. It's a small city, I guess. What's your next race? I have here in the notes you've done triathlons and marathons.
The New York City Marathon. I'm training for it.
Really?
And it's in November 5th, I think, or 3rd, I forget. I'm now on the schedule, like doing long runs during the weekend, which is very time consuming and not easy to do if you're also doing a startup and have a family, which I do, and I have 3 kids. So it's kind of tough right now, but I love it. I mean, I haven't done one. I've done 5 New York City marathons, but I haven't done one in a couple of years. So I'm excited. And
I'm kind of envious as more of a sprinter. Like I don't like to run long distance at all. Like I'd much rather be a sprinter.
Running for me, I mean, I've done triathlons and stuff, as you said, like and biking is super fun because of the speed, but running long distance puts me in a state of mind which I love, and it's like it impacts my brain. My brain starts to clean up stuff. I start thinking better when I run. I mean, a marathon is different, but like if I go for like
cardio, generally does that, I think.
Right, it puts me in such a meditative state of mind that I love. But then when I'm done, I'm also like very energetic, and so like I think that it's a combination of that that really makes me happy when I run.
What do you like to listen to when you run?
I don't listen to music when I run. I do listen to a lot of music, and I listen to a lot of like, I'm.
So you're so nothing. You don't listen to just your footsteps hitting the pavement.
It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I do. I mean, this weekend we had bad weather in New York, and so I did my long run on a treadmill, which was horrible. But usually, like I run more or less the perimeter. Like if I have to do like, let's say 18 miles, which is the next long run that I have to do next weekend, that's pretty much like the perimeter of like Manhattan from, let's say, 80th on the west side, 86. You go down and then you come up and then you go through Central Park. That's pretty much 18 miles.
What a beautiful run.
Exactly. And so like I just see the city, and that for me is enough. And after, like, I would say after 45 minutes, an hour, your brain and music, like your brain is starting to think on its own. And so
you don't want anything to listen to.
You don't want that. Yeah.
I remember that on long walks. I used to go on long walks in Manhattan. I'd walk from Upper East Side down to Chelsea or whatever. I think I've walked, all the way from the 80s all the way down to Battery Park,
Yeah.
It's just great. An awesome city.
The changes across like neighborhoods and streets.
Such a cool city. Yeah. Such a great place. Well, where can potential customers, employees, all that stuff find out get in touch with you?
Well, ScaleStack.ai is our website. They can reach out to me at CEO at ScaleStack.ai, Elio, ELIO. And yeah, we are like starting to attend like a lot of events. Next, we're going to be, well, there is a cool AWS event tomorrow, but I guess this podcast won't come in
probably
time.
take a week. Yeah.
But next, we're going to be in Austin for like a pavilion go-to-market conference, and at SaaStock in Dublin. And that's also mid-October. So those two are our next events where people can find us.
Great. Well, thanks so much for coming on, Elio. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian. It was great.